Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Game 13 of the 1886 World Chess Championship between Wilhelm Steinitz and Johannes Zukertort. So, we have a situation where Steinitz is up 2 points in the match, 6-4, but Johannes Zukertort has the white pieces in this game, so he will be looking to close that gap to 1 point in this game. Alright, so we have d4, we have d5, c4, a queen's gambit from Zukertort. We have e6, going for the queen's gambit declined from Steinitz, knight c3, knight f6, bishop f4, c5. Steinitz strikes in the center, adding some tension. We have e3, defending this pawn. We have takes, and we have knight c6, pressuring this isolated queen's pawn, which can be either a strength or a weakness in pretty much any position. In this position, after knight f3, the isolated queen's pawn is looking like a bit of a weakness, because d5 is very difficult to push. So we have bishop e7, allowing the king to castle. We have castles. We have rook e1. We have bishop d7, we have queen e2, setting up the battery. Zukertort sets up the battery between the queen and the bishop here, and also doubles up on the e-file. We have queen a5, just bring the queen out to an active square, pressuring the knight a little. We have knight b5, just bring the knight to an active square. We have a6, kicking the knight out, and then bishop c7, which is very cool, very danger levels. So, as we know, Zukertort was a future seer, and he managed to, in the future, when he was seeing the future, he was actually watching Gotham chess videos. So we have, bishop c7 is played. Steinitz responds with b6, which blocks the bishop's sight of the queen and again attacks the knight. We have knight c3, moving the knight to a safer space. We have rook fc8, attacking the bishop, forcing the bishop back to g3 to one of these squares. The engine suggests bishop g3, but all of them are valid, as long as you don't play bishop d6 and blunder the bishop. So we have bishop f4. We have b5, kicking the bishop out, forcing it either to bishop to d3 or b3. Zukertort chooses b3, with the idea, potentially, of setting up a battery on this diagonal, potentially, and also to keep the bishop on the same diagonal as the king, to add some pressure. We have queen b6, pressuring the d4 pawn. We have rook ed1, defending the d4 pawn. We have knight a5, attacking this bishop. We have bishop c2, so yes, I imagine, is going to go for queen d3 type beat. We have knight c4. We have bishop d3, attacking this knight, intending to kick it out, and also defending the b2 pawn. We have knight d6. Knight e5, pressuring this bishop, maybe going for some fun stuff. We have bishop e7, we have bishop g5, looking maybe to trade off the knight and get an attack on the h7 pawn. We have queen d8 from Steinitz, adding a defender to the knight. Queen f3, pressuring the knight further, and also putting some pressure on the a8 rook, which is why Steinitz moves that rook to a7. We have queen h3 going after this pawn, the h7 pawn. We have h6 kicking the bishop. We have bishop e3. We have rook ac7, doubling up on the c-file, which is the only semi-open file on the board that black can make use of, so it's a good idea to double up, though the knight is currently blocking anything. With d5, getting rid of the weakness that was the isolated queen's pawn, creating some complications. Very nice. It's actually just a straight up pawn sacrifice, but it's pretty cool. So we have b4, attacking this knight, kicking the defender of this pawn away. We have knight e2, moving the knight away. We have knight takes d5. We have bishop takes a6, rook a8, bishop d3, bishop f6, bishop d4, defending this knight. This bishop is also defended by the knight on e2, which is defended by the bishop, which is defended by the rook and the queen. Everything is nicely defended. The coordination of the pieces from white here is quite beautiful. So we have knight to b5. We have knight f3, dropping the knight back and defending this bishop twice. Knight takes d4, knight f takes d4, rook a5, and queen f3. We have bishop a4, attacking this rook, forcing the rook to move somewhere else. We have rook e1, knight e7, looking to reroute the knight and also to add some pressure to this knight, as it is now attacked twice and defended once. We have queen e4, setting up this battery, threatening is scary, and so we have g6 to prevent the scary from happening, and then we have b3, kicking this bishop away. We have bishop e8, just adding some defense to the king side. We have bishop c4, going for maybe a piece sacrifice. If you go h5 here, the engine suggests knight takes e6, followed by, I assume, followed by rook ad1, queen a8, and then you take with the queen. Queen takes e6, and white is ever so slightly better in this position because you're pressuring, you're attacking the king. The engine says white is slightly better. I think in most cases white wins this game. In a game between two humans, I think in most cases white wins because there's a lot of pressure, and humans, we tend to crumble under pressure. But that does not happen. Instead we have knight f5 from the Steinitz. Knight takes e6, he goes for the knight sacrifice. According to the engine, it's an awful move, but that doesn't matter. This is the 1800s. We have bishop takes e6, check, king g7, we have rook ad1, attacking the queen, we have queen e7, knight f4, and all of the pieces all of a sudden are being brought just in the general direction of the king. We now are in a position where white has actually come back. White is now up a point of material. So we have knight d4, defended by the bishop, attacking this bishop. Bishop c4, just solidifying this bishop and solidifying the pawns. Bishop c6, setting up maybe, just taking control of this diagonal, maybe setting up some pressure on the g2 pawn. We have queen d3, setting up the battery, also setting up some pressure here. You can't really move the knight anymore. We have queen e3, attacking this knight. We have queen d6, we have a3. This is a pawn sacrifice you can't take because you lose the bishop. We have bishop c6, a takes b4, and queen f6. The idea of queen f6 is that if you take the bishop, you lose the game, because knight e2 check happens, and after bishop takes, queen takes, this position is awful. Then we have knight b5, moving the knight, adding a defender to this bishop. We have queen e6, offering a queen trade and threatening to go queen g8 check, which would be mate in the current position. So we have a queen trade with bishop takes b4, and white ends up a point of material in this position. And this is a very nice endgame. So in these types of endgames we have white has a rook and 2 pawns versus 2 pieces. According to the engine, this is just significantly better for white, but not quite winning. However, in this position, you want to win with white. How do you win with white in a position such as this? You harass the pieces. You have 1 rook. The only way that your opponent can compete with the rook is if they coordinate their pieces effectively. So, what you want to do is prevent your opponent from coordinating their pieces in an effective manner. The way you do this is you harass the pieces with the rook. The rook is more powerful than a bishop, it's more powerful than a knight, but a knight and a bishop combined can sometimes outcompete a rook if they are coordinated effectively. Now, in this position, you're up a point of material. You have 2 pawns and a rook for 2 pieces, so white should be, technically, if not winning, very close. But we have bishop e7 here, and we have b4, going immediately to promote this pawn. We have king e5, rook c4, and knight b5, preventing this pawn from advancing any further. We have rook c6 going after these pawns here, and bishop d6 cutting off the rook's sight of those pawns. Whoopsie doopsie, cut that out. Bishop d6 cutting off the rook's sight of these pawns here. Now we have rook b6, putting pressure on the knight and throwing the coordination all out of whack. We have knight d4, rook b7, just 7th rank, you know, the piggies on the 7th and all. General chess principle. We have b5, so white's Zukertort's just pushing the pawn further. King c6, and rook h7, so he's used the b pawn as bait to draw the king away, and he will now, to draw the king and the pieces away from these pawns over here, the defense of these pawns, and he will now win both of these pawns, and well, the goal for Zukertort is to end up playing a 3 pawns and a rook versus 2 pieces endgame. So we have king takes b6, we have rook takes h6, king c7, and h4. So, Zukertort trades down into this position where there are no complications. Okay, right, like, there's absolutely no possible way to lose this position for white, especially considering it's the 1800s, they probably didn't actually know how to win, how to checkmate with bishop and knight, in all honesty. So, in this position for black, there's only 1 move that draws, and in fact, black does not find it. So, as of this move, move 68, white is winning according to the table base. We have rook h7 check, going after the king, cutting the king off the 7th rank, with king d8 and g4, kicking the knight out. G4 is apparently a mistake from white. It gives black an opportunity, it gives Steinitz an opportunity to draw with knight b4, but Steinitz does not find it. He plays knight e7, which seems very logical. It cuts off the rook's view of the 7th rank, and I imagine he intends to move his king to d7, maybe to e6, bring his king over to stop the advance of the pawn, but in fact it's a bad move. So we have king g2, we have king e8, we have king f3, we have bishop c5, rook h5, harassing the bishop some more, we have bishop d4, we have king g3, we have king f7, we have f4, pushing these pawns now, we have bishop c3, rook b5, bishop e8 check, only winning move is king f3, Zukertort finds that. With bishop c3, we have g5, bishop a1, king g4, bishop c3. So now Steinitz is just repeating moves and hoping that, basically he's just going back and forth with the bishop and hoping that he's able to stop these pawns with a blockade. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to happen for black here, purely because if you're able to give up either one of these pieces for both pawns, then it's a draw. But that's not gonna happen. If you want both pawns, you're gonna have to give up both these pieces, and I imagine Zukertort knows how to checkmate with king and rook. So we have f5, with bishop d4, we have rook b7, bishop c3, king h4, bishop d4, king h6, we have a bishop check, king h7, we have bishop f5, we have g6 check, we have king to f8, we have rook takes, and here in this position, Steinitz resigns the game, as this is a really bad position to find yourself in. So the problem is that after rook takes, after king takes rook, g7 wins. After rook takes e7, Steinitz resigns the game to Zukertort, who closes the gap to 1 point after losing quite a few games in a row. He brings it back. He's back on the grind. He's back in the Sigma grind. So yeah, that was this game. I hope you enjoyed, and that's it for me today. See ya.